Anna Basevich, SVP and General Manager at Arcadia, and with me.
I'm David Hall. I'm the Director of IT for the Vanderbilt Health Affiliated Network, part of Vanderbilt University Medical Center.
So, couple of learning objectives today. We want to talk about how to present really compelling business cases. Get into how we wrap our heads around the things that make our stakeholders worry about these types of implementations. And finally, dig into some of the strategies for getting teams aligned. Because I think many of us have seen that these projects can be so impactful if everyone's moving towards the same vision.
Steps we're going to walk through here on this begin with ensuring your organization's whys are understood. When I say whys, very specific on that word, we love to talk about what's the problem we're trying to solve. So, and we're really good at getting problems solved, but once you just define that problem, you can dump a whole lot of stuff into the problem. So one of the things we push for is not just understanding what's the problem, but why does that problem need to be solved? And we drove to that, like when we were doing the data selection, we actually had 21 whys that we captured from every group. So we went stakeholder group by stakeholder group, where there was care coordination, data analytics, quality engagement, network engagement, and made sure we understood not just the problems that they needed, not just the capabilities they needed, but the why behind each of those capabilities. And that's something we have kept present through the entire implementation project. So when somebody comes up and says, oh, it doesn't do this, well, that wasn't a why behind what we were trying to do. It's something we can add in there, that it keeps us focused on why we're doing it, where we're trying to get to, including the financial, operational, and cultural goals. That's something, as we did stakeholder interviews, we made sure we asked about every single step of the way. So what's the why behind the why, if you will? Making sure we understand the drivers that where we're trying to get to, so we got the context for everything that we're trying to accomplish. And then finally, agreeing on how successful we measure it. So it's not just about having a why, it's not just about having a what, it's how do we know we've gotten there? How do we measure the steps that we've taken, and have we crossed the threshold to say this is good enough or not? In our case, you would agree with us, our definition of success was very, very high. But we were clear about it every step of the way. We all were on the same page, and it helped us keep all of our stakeholders aligned throughout the process.
Well, David, that you call out the cultural goals there, it's one of the ones that gets missed really often. It's such a great example of how everything you're laying out for that implementation has to tie into who you are as an organization and where you're going.
Yeah.
Because if you're implementing a data platform focused on value-based care, and as an organization, you are milking fee for service and loving it, sooner or later, you're going to run into some really hard goals.
Very difficult conversation at that point. But it's also, let's go back one slide for a second. It's not just where you are and where you're going. It's also understanding the history of where you've been. We have a network that had a lot of challenges in the pop health space, in the pop health platform space. So understanding the sensitivity to what's gotten you to your current point is also a big factor for us, making sure we took care of that.
So that's a good lead in for the stakeholder concerns.
Stakeholder concerns. I'm sure no one has any, particularly in our current environment, about cost. Like, there's no worries there, right? So obviously, these are three big things right across: cost, what's this going to cost, what's my ROI? And that was one thing we always tried to turn the conversation back to, is not just how much is this going to cost, what are we going to get for the cost? Implementation, timeline, change control. We could spend a long time, Anna and I spent a lot of time talking about implementation timelines. Making sure that we understand that, making sure it's meeting the needs, making sure that we have clear goals on where we're starting and what we're trying to get done first, as opposed to trying to boil the entire ocean. What are we going to get there, and how do we know we've reached before we go to the next step? Make sure we've got the change control in place. Our network is spread across the entire state of Tennessee. We have 13 hospital systems. We have 6,700 providers. Getting them all to buy into using a new platform has been an interesting piece. So we've been very intentional about how we put the teams together and how we've engaged into those practices. Having success measures for them, having a 30, 60, 90 type process in place where they understand what the roadmap is for them and how to engage in that. And we're having a lot of success just because of the early effort on the change control. And then what if it doesn't work? Of course, it's IT. It's going to work perfectly. You're never going to have a problem with this. Inaccurate data, no performance, downtimes that are unexpected and hit you at the wrong time. So you make sure you're communicating through that. And that's the key piece here, back to the change control. Making sure your communication lines are established, making sure the expectations are set. And then making sure that when it isn't working, you have clear communication with your vendor, with your stakeholders, and everybody gets back on the same page.
These have been, I think, the case for like as long as either of us has been doing implementations, and we don't have to get into how long that's been. But interesting for me is the way it doesn't work has changed a lot, right? Because when we were doing pop health 10, 15 years ago, it was like, oh, this is so novel. What if it, what if it doesn't work? Now we're like, well, the last one didn't work, and the one after that didn't work. So you're coming into it with like almost a more grounded spirit.
Yeah.
So, in a lot of ways, one of the things that we sat down and shared, right? Say, hey, it's not my first time doing it. What went wrong? What are we actually taking away from that? So we have a more forward to actually take the legitimate parts of the sphere and tackle them down.
Right. And make sure, like you said, it's having the conversation, it's putting it out there. So not just assuming it, not just assume that any of these are going to be in the back of the stakeholder's mind, but talking it through and making sure the expectations are then set. So, as you said, we came into it with a lot of expectation for it to not work. We've had instances where we had those unfortunate conversations with vendors where it didn't work and we had to walk away. So how do you make sure that we have the expectation right? And then keep coming back and visiting it. This is not a one-time thing. This was really key for us as we went through the implementation. It keeps coming back. Remember, we talked about this. Remember, this is where we're at. So we walked through it and we kept walking through it. It stayed front of mind for everything.
And conveniently enough, it's a stellar way to build relationships, right? To build out that trust. Because it's one thing, like in a lot of ways, everything we talk about, there's vulnerability here, right? We're putting our hopes and dreams out there. We're saying, hey, I want to be successful at this. I want to move my organization forward. And this is what I'm worried about. We're saying, all right, we're going to tackle it together.
Yep. We're going to get together. And likewise, if you don't do it, it's a great way to destroy trust, to destroy progress. So it's something that the absence of is actually more damaging than the presence of. So make sure you're focusing on that.
Completely.
Okay. Aligning teams, ensure goals and priorities are understood. I think I've beaten this course enough, but again, you can't emphasize enough. You keep doing that. Alignment meetings and commitments timeline. This is something, again, we established early. We kept going with the Arcadia folks. We kept this going. I don't know how frequently we talk, but we spent a lot of time talking together, making sure that we were aligning it. And if anything started going off, realigning, coming back to it. It didn't always snap right back, but it was staying committed to it. And then the commitments to the timeline, that takes a commitment on both sides. So if we as a customer are not committed, Arcadia can't deliver for us. The vendor can't deliver on us. If you guys don't stay connected to the timeline, we just think, and again, trust gets broken, we don't get success.
And what I liked about the framework here, David, especially with the alignment meetings, coming back to those goals, is that it's the structure that might not mean that much to you when things are rolling smoothly, but you got to have it in place. Otherwise, it's a lot harder to get glued together, right? You got to have the sort of pinch you back into place. So things are going to change, right? We're going to run into delays. We're going to run into whatever issue.
Your vendor's got to come up with all new tools that you want and cover new capabilities that you want to unlock.
And your goals are going to change.
Yeah.
One of the best things we did was we sat down 3-4 months ago and we said, hey, let's figure out what our priorities are as an organization. Let's zoom back. Like,
yeah.
Who are you talking to that I don't even know about? Who are you worried about? Who are you excited about? Yeah. And every time we do that every month, there's a new opportunity that comes up and we have a chance to shake out how we address it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so taking that, one of the things that came out of that conversation that I was referencing, we're taking a look and we're getting ready to celebrate. We've been live for a year now, and we're getting ready to celebrate that. And one of the graphics we've put together, which I haven't shown you yet, is a list of those capabilities and where we're at on those, but then where we've been adding things and having that conversation so we can keep adding in and keep that front of mind for everybody. These are the capabilities we have. and this is where we're going to go next. And then we can use that as a conversation to keep refocusing. So as priorities change, as administrations change and your priorities change because of that, you can refocus and make sure that you're moving towards something that moves your organization forward.
So before we hop into Q&A and open it up, a couple things I want to ask folks to take away from this. First and foremost, orienting that implementation around those drivers of success, really thinking through at the end of the day, it's not about the platform, it's not about how many widgets you put in place, it's who's going to be able to accomplish what off of it. What are you really excited about? Why did you put that RFP out? Why did you choose to make that investment? Laying out that implementation plan, achievable is a huge one, especially at this point where it's not our first rodeo, right? Not most organizations' first rodeo. There's a lot of room to learn about where these things get hard and plan for them. So it doesn't feel like a failure the first time you have a setback. And finally, making sure that we're building out that ROI all the way throughout, that it's not a magical, hey, like we really got to button down here because in 5 years, we're going to get something really great out of it. But making sure that that's really staggered, that everyone who's got to put a little bit of sweat and elbow grease into it is getting some real-time feedback on it.
And on top of that, it's taking some of those things that are the longer poles in your tent that are going to take a while and making sure we understand that up front and that we're measuring our steps towards that. So it's not like it's a black hole until we get there and then magically it happens. It's we're taking steps every step of the way. We're making progress. We can see that and we can celebrate the wins along the way, as well as the shorter term stuff that we're actually turning on.
All right, we'll be around.
Thank you all very
guys.
much.